Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very powerful show coming right up. Our special guest today is Brooke Alpert, and she's here to talk to us about her new book, The Diet Detox: Why Your Diet is Making You Fat and What to Do About It. 10 simple rules to help you stop dieting, start eating, and lose the weight for good. Brooke feels that we're addicted to fad diets, cleanses, and programs that promise miracles in minutes. But when diets have expiration dates, so do the results. After those popular 30-day diets end, people slide back into the same bad habits that led them to weight gain in the first place. Nationally recognized nutrition expert Brooke has seen this happen too often, and she knows that in order to lose weight and keep it off, you must develop habits that will help you stop dieting and start eating well for the rest of your life. So let's welcome to the show, Brooke.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's such a pleasure to spend this time with you. And gosh, what a great book this is. I mean, once I started reading it, I couldn't put it down.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot.
Well, and so I'm always very curious as to what inspired you to even kind of follow this path where you're kind of getting into the diet and the detox and bringing that all together.
Sure. Well, I've been a dietitian for just about 11 years now, and I've had my practice just as long. I have a private practice in New York City, and my job is basically to counsel people on how to find a sustainable long-term way to lose weight and keep it off. And it was shortly after the birth of my second daughter when I really had to struggle with my own weight. And there's nothing fun about being a weight loss expert when you're carrying around an extra 20-something pounds post-pregnancy. And I had given myself the time, and I was really patient with myself, and eventually I started to lose my mind a bit. And I wanted to say, try a juice cleanse or something. You know, my mind went to these unhealthy quick fixes to make it happen quicker. And I basically got into the head of what most of my clients feel like. And I think as tough as it was for me, it was really gratifying to really be able to see the struggle and see it through my clients' eyes. And so that's where the book came up. The book concept came from. I basically had to sit myself down and have, a come to Brooke moment and just basically say, you know what to do. You know the right way to eat. Let's make this super, super simple because even for myself, it can be overwhelming. And what do you need to do to get the job done for long term? Because any of these quick fixes were only going to work for a day or two, and then you feel worse. So that was really the reasoning behind this book, and it's sort of my my diet manifesto, both personally and professionally.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because I think a lot of people, and you explained like how you put on a little extra weight, and it could be from baby or hormones or injury or whatever the case is, and a lot of people kind of beat themselves up about that.
Absolutely, and it's really the worst thing we can do. It's really when you start feeling good about yourself, then you make positive choices that help you feel good about yourself. And the same thing happens vice versa. When you're feeling bad, that's when you reach for that cookie because you're like, oh, it doesn't matter, who cares? And I ate the cookie, then I feel worse. So I eat another cookie or eat something else that makes you feel bad about yourself. It's really quite cyclic.
Yeah, it seems to kind of it's like being on the hamster wheel. It's a circle that, a spiral that kind of keeps going down.
Right, and you can go in either direction.
That's good to know. So when you were, doing all the research for your book, and gosh, you did a lot. I mean, your appendix has probably some of the best research I think I've seen in a very long time. I mean, you really did your homework on this. Was it because you cover a lot of different topics, and we'll go through some of these in a moment here, but was it because of the things that you were experiencing personally, or because of the stuff that you were dealing with your clients, or kind of a combination of them both?
Well, I'm a registered dietitian. That's number one. So I have my master's in science. So everything I do as a practitioner needs to be evidence-based, right? I can give some suggestions of, hey, this is what worked for me, which is one thing. but I have my credentials because I'm clinically trained, and everything I do is backed by science.
Yes.
What I think I specialize in is taking that hardcore science and making it really user-friendly. And so how do we break down some of the benefits of, say, intermittent fasting, right, which I'm sure we'll get into eventually, but how do we make that really user-friendly and make it really accessible for the average person? And that's where I sort of exist as the moderator between hard science and the average public.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I know in your book you've got 10 rules, because you're all about keeping this really simple, which I love. And so why don't you go over some of those with us?
Sure. My goal, whether it's someone who's reading my book or whether it's someone I'm seeing in my practice each day, is we need these guidelines. And at first, the guidelines, each of them seem really small and minute, and anyone can say, well, I knew that. So when you put them all together, it's a major diet lifestyle overhaul. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, number one is the big question I get is, well, what do I eat? So this is rule number one, is there needs to be a protein source and a fiber source on your plate for every single meal. This answers every question of, well, what should be on my plate? I'm going to this restaurant. I'm cooking at home. You need to know that you fill those two categories.
And you've got those two things there. Yeah.
Exactly. It's food. It's not rocket science. This shouldn't be so difficult. And yet we've made, our world that this is so incredibly challenging, and you have to count and restrict and deprive, and then you can't do too much of one thing. Again, we're just talking about food. It's chicken and broccoli. It's not so complicated.
Well, and that kind of brings, actually, I wanted to ask this before we got a little too ahead here, but that kind of brings in the whole thing about the diet detox, because it's really bringing things to where it's simple, as opposed to, because, especially after the beginning of the year here, not everyone, but most people are looking at their physical health and wanting to see what they can do, and there's diets for everything. And a lot of times they can be very confusing and overwhelming.
Absolutely. And I named the book The Diet Detox because it's our diets that are making us fat. It's all of these, quick fixes that we're doing that are causing those extra pounds to get on our waist, in our body. So, I wanted people to sort of get off of this, yo-yo dieting roller coaster and just learn how to eat, because we don't know how to eat anymore. That's our biggest problem.
Yeah. Is that like the number one thing that you see when people come to you, to work with you as a client, is that they're eating just like way off track?
Most of my clients have been serial dieters, so that they have tried every diet out there, and they can no longer look at a carrot as a carrot. I had a client who was like, well, I know carrots have a lot of carbohydrates in them, so maybe I shouldn't eat them. And I literally had to tell someone last week, you're not sitting on my couch to lose 35 pounds because you eat too many carrots, right? But we've lost touch with what's going on. A carrot has never put someone on my couch. It's kind of hilarious how far we've come from normal eating, or what should be considered normal eating.
Mm-hmm. And just really kind of understand that. And you touched on that with, make sure they have protein and fiber for every meal. And so that, for people, they really need to, if they're looking to make just kind of long-term changes, they want to make sure that they have that. And so it really cuts out like the fast food and all this other junk that sometimes gets in the way.
It does cut it out, but also then you go to a fast food restaurant and you're like, how do I get protein and fiber? Well, maybe, look, fast food has to happen sometimes. Ideally it doesn't, but let's be a realist. If you're driving a truck for long periods of time, if you're on a road trip or it's an emergency. I had to have fast food one day because we had to pull over in the middle of a snowstorm. There was nowhere else to eat. So a ride that should have taken an hour ended up taking 6 hours. So you can only be as prepared, and occasionally fast food happens. But so, all right, let me get the burger. I'll take it off the bun. Let me get the best salad that they have, even if it's iceberg lettuce, and do the best that I can and not beat myself up over it.
Yeah, it really allows people to use your book in a way that fits every lifestyle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And there's even a section, rule number 6, which is indulge intentionally. It teaches people that there's a time and a place for those French fries or the cupcake or that piece of dessert or whatever would be considered, an indulgence for someone. Because if I made a diet plan, but there was no plan ever or room for a cupcake or a slice of cake or something, then you're not going to stick to it. Life's too short not to have a piece of cake every so often. You just can't have it every day.
Yeah, cake every day would not be a good thing. And just being conscious and making choices, making different choices.
Exactly.
Well, and so, so we talked about rule number 1, to eat protein and fiber in every meal. And so that's not that hard for people to do. They can incorporate something. If they look at their plate and go, okay, I've got the protein, I've got my chicken or fish figured out. Fiber can be like, I'm not quite sure, is that a salad? Am I having to take something else? You pretty much have it where it explains it in the book, so it makes it easy for them to understand.
Yeah, again, I wanted to break it down to the most simple of terms. So I actually changed what the food groups are. So we have protein, which I think most people know, which are traditional animal protein. So chicken, fish, beef, yogurt, and nuts and beans would all fall into the protein category. But when I'm talking about fiber, I'm only talking fruits and vegetables. The other greens, like oatmeal or rice or pasta, which often, like whole grains, do contain fiber, go into another category called starches, which is rule number 2, to check your starches. The reason why I put all those delicious bready grains and rice and pastas into its own category is because that's the one thing that I need people to watch how much they're eating. We need to be a little stricter about our starches than any other food. First of all, because they're so easy to overeat. Second of all, because of what they do in our body. And normally, most of these will cause weight gain. So as long as we eat them in a portion-controlled manner, they're okay.
Mm-hmm. And then the next one, you talk about clock your meals. What does that mean?
So we need to eat on a schedule, just like I once said to a client, I was like, well, you have a newborn baby. The baby's on a schedule. You need to be on a schedule. So we get hungry, and when we go past certain hunger levels, by waiting too long between meals, we don't make healthy choices. So I ask people to have a meal or a snack approximately every 4 hours. It's okay to push it sometimes to 5 or sometimes to 3, depending on your schedule, but on average it should be every 4 hours. And that normally for most people will add into 3 meals and 1 snack a day. The reason for this is, 1, as I said, it leads you to being able to make healthier choices at the end of the day or at each meal. And 2, it helps stabilize your blood sugar levels. Any smart diet plan is targeting your blood sugar levels. Keeping blood sugar levels is the number one thing you need to do to stay, to help you lose weight and to keep the weight off, but also to keep your hunger levels at bay. Those spikes, those blood sugar spikes that we get when we eat those, refined carbohydrates like the white bread and white rice and stuff, all they do is set you up to fail at your next meal.
Well, and that's good information for people to know, because a lot of times people are probably thinking, well, I'm eating rice and chicken. It should be okay.
Absolutely, and there's nothing wrong with rice and chicken. The rice needs to be portion controlled. And, everything needs to be relatively portion controlled. The only thing I'm pretty free on is greens. You can have as many greens as you want. But the rice needs to be a proper serving. The chicken should be approximately, around 6 ounces. And there should be tons of greens on your plate. Then I'm totally fine with chicken and rice as long as you have those greens as well.
Mm-hmm. And the greens are, a lot of times we look at greens, we're like, it could seem a little overwhelming to eat so many greens, but it's easy to do once you dive in.
Well, first of all, they're very low in calorie. They have very, very little sugar, if any. And they're super important, to keep your blood sugar levels stable. They have vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and they're loaded with fiber. Fiber is a huge helper to keep those blood sugar levels stable. So I know I sound like a broken record, which is the last thing you want on radio, but it's all about stabilizing the blood sugar levels.
Well, and that's so important because, sugar can get a little bit out of whack. But I know the next one you talk about eating fat, and a lot of people are like, well, wait a minute, I'm on a diet. Why would I eat fat?
Oh, God, we need fat. Low fat is so in the 1990s. This is all about fat. Our cells, our skin, our body, fat is essential in our diet. And when I say it's essential, it's not just literally essential. It actually means that you need to get it from your food to provide your body. So our brain cells are surrounded, all of our cells are surrounded with a fatty membrane. That membrane keeps those cells healthy. If we don't have enough fat in our diet, we're not going to be healthy. That's when skin doesn't look good. That's when our brain function isn't sharp. That's really important. Fat, of course, as everyone knows I'm about to say, helps reduce blood sugar levels. So it helps slow down the absorption of sugar from other foods when there's fat. So say something like yogurt, which is a health food, right? We would all say yogurt is healthy for us. When you have all of these flavored yogurts, right, that are loaded with sugar and often have more sugar than a half a scoop of, say, vanilla ice cream, when you make them fat-free, you're taking out something that would slow down the absorption of all that sugar. So when you even take a plain yogurt and you take it fat-free, you're left with higher quantities of sugar that get absorbed quicker into the bloodstream. But if you're eating a plain yogurt with no added sugars, just the natural sugars that come in the lactose, which is what naturally from dairy, right, then your blood sugar levels will stay more stable because the fat slows down the absorption of blood sugar into your body.
Well, and I know that you also talk about the benefits of coconut water and coconut fat, which, it's actually one of my favorite things.
I love everything, coconut flavor to begin with. So let's just say that. But yes, coconut water is different because that doesn't contain any fat. But using a fat like coconut oil to saute your vegetables is a great idea. Using grass-fed butter or ghee is all great. Using olive oil but not heating it too high. All of those are great ways to get fat into your diet. But also, if you're eating good quality grass-fed beef, if you're having nuts, naturally contain fat, chia seeds naturally contain fat. So I don't make fat its own food group because if you're eating a healthy diet plan, you should automatically be getting enough fat into your diet. So you don't have to overthink it.
Yeah, because I know there's a trend of, I think people are having where they make kind of like that bulletproof coffee where they have the fat in it, and I think it's MCT oil,
yeah, which is sort of like a coconut oil on steroids, and it's great. And you're not eating fat does not make you fat. Eating sugar will make you fat. So fat is not the enemy here by any means. So no more of that milk that looks blue, no more of egg whites, which are constipating, let's eat whole foods.
Let's actually enjoy a meal and have it be fresh and healthy. And, and I'm sure that you probably, feel that people should, if they're going to eat greens, probably do more organic than, traditional.
Listen, I'm definitely pro-organic. I do my best at home with my children to always keep things organic. We also have to be realistic. I'm in my office all day long. I'm not always able to get organic greens in my salad. So you can do the best you can. When you have the opportunity to buy organic and you can afford it, great. But don't beat yourself up that you can't do it. People just need to do the best they can and not feel guilty about their decision.
Yeah, because it's that guilt that will really take you down, So.
I say in the book, guilt makes you fat. When you feel guilty about any of your food choices, that's when it makes you fat. But if you can eat a couple of those French fries and not feel any guilt about it, go for it. If you're going to feel guilt, stay far away.
Because it really is. I mean, about your mental well-being as well, because that's, you want to do, you want to have healthy eating in a way that also makes you feel good when you're doing it, as opposed to you're kind of beating yourself up every 15 minutes.
Well, that's the thing. If a diet is too restrictive, it's not going to work. You're actually going to rebound from it and most likely gain weight. And every single time that we do this yo-yo dieting of lose weight, gain weight, not only are you telling your metabolism, hey, just keep gaining weight, right? And it gets harder and harder to lose the weight. You actually alter your gut microbiome. So all of those bacteria that's in your gut, you alter them, and you have more of the bacteria that actually lead to weight gain versus having more of the bacteria that help you with weight loss. So this yo-yo dieting causes your metabolism to be messed up. It changes your gut microbiome. And mentally, and psychologically, it sets up a terrible relationship with food.
Now, is it really hard to get your gut back into health once it's been all messed up,
Not really, and that's what's so amazing about the body. It's really quite forgiving. So if you've been eating terrible foods, start feeding it tons of vegetables. Those vegetables are actually a prebiotic, which is basically the food that this good bacteria feeds off of. So if you start giving your bacteria a gorgeous buffet of everything it likes, the good bacteria is going to get stronger and stronger right away. Then if you can supplement with a probiotic, I created one with Twin Lab called Beauty Flora, then that's even better. So the best thing you can do is always adding more greens to any diet plan.
Yeah, and have it that way. Now, you touched on a little bit about sugar, and I know that that's the next rule. And you go into great detail. We're just kind of skimming through these, and talking about them briefly. But in your book, you've got great detail and have some case studies and wonderful things like that. But when we talk about watching our sugar, and you talked about the low fat and how that converts and, ends up being actually not as good in some cases. What are some of the sneaky ways that sugar gets in our diet aside from that we are just not aware of? And it's kind of, for you, it's kind of common knowledge.
Well, I'm sort of known as the anti-sugar nutritionist. My last book was called The Sugar Detox, and that was targeting people who were true sugar addicts. I believe sugar is a drug, and our body treats it like a drug. But when I ask people to watch the sugar, it is in everything. And what really upsets me as a clinician is when I see people trying to make healthy choices and not realizing that they're actually still making bad choices for their body. So sneaky sugars can be in everything from salad dressing. How messed up is that? You're coating vegetables with sugar. I mean, it's so upsetting that these salad dressings are loaded with sugar. It can be it's in ketchup. It's in tomato sauces. It's in whole grain breads. So I tell people, don't look at the nutrition label because those percentages and all of that is just confusing. Read the ingredients. And unless it's a food that should have sugar in it, there should not be sugar listed, or at least it should be lower on the ingredient list. The first 5 ingredients should never be sugar of your food.
Well, and I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear about it being in pasta sauce and stuff like that. And it's not that hard to make from scratch if you're going to have, make a pasta sauce. It's really not that difficult to do.
It's not that difficult to do, but also there's plenty of brands where there's no sugar added. So all you need to do is just read the ingredients. I mean, look, I would love to make my own pasta sauces. It's not going to happen. Most of the time it comes from a jar for my kids. So if we're realistic in what we're asking people to do, there's a better chance they're going to stick to it. So, yes, great. It would be great if we could all grow our own vegetables too, And I'm all for it, and I think it's a wonderful goal. But, there's plenty of healthy options out there. You just need to be an informed consumer.
Well, I would love to spend a little bit more time on the sugar piece because, I see it in a lot of my foods, and I'm always kind of being cautious with that as well. Do you have any, case studies you can share with us in regards to this whole sugar piece?
I mean, sure. Need some more specifics here. Work with me a little bit more.
Well, something that is, maybe someone's come to you and they're trying to overcome the sugar portion of the 10 steps, and it's something that they didn't even realize or something that they're having issues kind of letting go.
Sure. Well, sometimes the best ones that come to me, they sit on my couch and they'll literally say to me, well, sugar is not my issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say, okay. And then we talk about what they eat every day. And they'll tell me they eat, they eat bread, they love pizza, they love pasta. And I start laughing because I'm like, you like sugar. You are a sugar addict, but you're just eating it in a savory form. So sugar-rich foods don't always taste sweet. And that's what's really tricky. And so those are the ones that are the most fun to call out because they didn't even realize they had a sweet tooth because it was so covered with savory flavoring. But when the people love those bagels and muffins and pastas and rice and all of that, that's sugar. It's just in a different form. So, but it's really interesting when you get people off of sugar, and how they'll go through some of the withdrawal symptoms that we have because we are truly addicted to sugar. It is really, it signals in our brain the same feelings in the same, areas that do with a lot of hardcore drugs. And so think about it. You have something sweet or even a savory version of something sweet, and what happens? You feel really good. You get a burst of energy, and then all of a sudden you come crashing down, which is why most people at 3 o'clock, right, start hitting that vending machine and wanting that chocolate. I mean, goodness, I always have dark chocolate in my refrigerator in the office because come 3 o'clock I want it too. But we set ourselves up for failure when allowing these blood sugar spikes and drops, and all it does is make you crave more and more because who doesn't want to feel good again?
Yeah. And it's really that it's just the mind's kind of tricking us with all that,
Well, it's our body and our hormones. We truly have a hormonal reaction to sugar. So not only is our brain and the dopamine and the serotonin levels going off saying, ooh, this feels good, we like it, and then that goes away so quickly. But our hormonal levels, completely react to it, causing all that brain reaction. So you really have true physical signs of a withdrawal from sugar.
Well, and so when you have people that are detoxing off of sugar, about how long does that take? And is it really hard for them to do?
In my last book, I gave people 3 days, 3 days with no added sugars, and even took away all fruits or any sources of sugar. They really didn't like me for it, but I was working with true sugar addicts. What I do in the diet detox is a little bit more gentle because I'm not dealing with exactly sugar addicts here. I mean, we're a nation that's dependent on sugar, but this is a different relationship here. So I'm trying to target the people that are always dieting, and I, wrote the book for anyone who ever said the diet starts Monday, which is all of us. And so, when it comes to the sugar, I give them a 1-week Kickstarter plan, which really reduces the amount of sugar they're eating. And so after that 1 week, they really should have a much better sense of control over their sugar needs and sugar habits. So give it anywhere between 3 days to a week to really get it under control, but follow it strictly because you're only going to do yourself a disservice if you decide to cheat here and there.
Yeah, because it really kind of just sets you up, and you're right. I mean, it's exactly like someone that's addicted to, any other kind of addiction. It's once they get back on it, you have to start all over again in some ways.
Absolutely. And, look, for an alcoholic, we could say stay away from booze or don't go into a bar. What do you do for food? We're always going to be around it. It's everywhere. And you don't always have control over what goes into your food. So you might need to order, say a sandwich at a restaurant or, to grab on your way, at a local deli. And what happens? You don't even realize that there's extra sugar in the food that they're putting to you, that even the turkey could have sugar in it. The bread has sugar in it. Their mayonnaise has sugar in it. So you're trying to make healthy choices, and yet you're being, your addiction, the food that's addictive to you is being kind of flashed at you nonstop. So it's much harder, I think, than, to stay away from food when it's your drug of choice.
Yeah. Well, and I know in your book you talk also about gluten, and I'd love for you to share a little bit about that with us.
Sure. I had someone come to me, and I think I write about this one in the book too, and she says, aren't you proud I'm gluten-free? So look, I bought all of these gluten-free pretzels and crackers and chips, and I'm like, wait, you're still eating a ton of junk. Like, I don't care whether it's gluten, organic, or blessed by the Pope. Like, it's still junk, Let's call it what it is. So gluten-free can be great, especially if you have celiacs or any sort of gluten intolerances. The truth is we don't need gluten in our diet, right? So all of these grain products are not necessary. We certainly don't need them. The reason why I allow them is because people love them. And often when I say to people, hey, let's cut back on the bread, they automatically think I'm trying to ask them not to ever have another, starch or carbohydrate. So what happens is they go to a restaurant, there's stale bread on the table, they dive in head first, right? And who cares about the stale bread at this restaurant? But if you've said to yourself, no bread at all, then all of a sudden you put this food on a pedestal and you can't eat it in any sort of controlled fashion. That's a problem. So while gluten isn't necessary, I think it's better if we try to avoid it. It is a super inflammatory nutrient for a lot of people. Some people can tolerate it fine. There's just no reason to have it in your diet unless it's something you're truly craving. So if I want a cookie, I'm going to have a cookie gluten-free or not. But most of my plan, the way that I eat the rest of the day, is going to not normally include gluten.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you touched on this at the beginning of the show. You talked about fasting. And I would love for you to expand on that for us as well, because a lot of times people think, if I fast for a day or I'm doing these different diets that have me fast for, a few days. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure. Again, everything I need to do is evidence-based. And there's really amazing research that's come out now about intermittent fasting. And it's becoming a little bit more mainstream, which I think is great because whenever really cool science comes out, it gets someone like me super stoked. So intermittent fasting can be done a lot of different ways, but basically you're fasting for numerous hours. The science behind it is great in that it shows it could help really reset your metabolism, help with weight loss, help with, basically every health condition that it could be beneficial for. But what's the catch here? It's really hard to go without eating for a day. It's not in our nature to go past food and not have it. So how can we, my goal, as I said earlier, is how can we benefit from this really cool research but make it a little bit more user-friendly? And I was so excited when I stumbled across some research talking about early time restricted feeding, otherwise known as ETRF. And what they did was they did tons of studies showing that when they restricted the times that you ate, so having an earlier dinner and then a normal hour breakfast, so approximately 12 to 14 hours from your dinner until your breakfast, showed a lot of the same benefits as hardcore intermittent fasting. So I took a look and I was like, 12 to 14 hours. Well, let's see. If you finish and you eat dinner at 7 and you have breakfast at 7, well, that's 12 hours. That's quite simple, right? And most of the time you're just asleep. So from, at least 7 of those hours, so over half of the hours you're sleeping, well, this is quite an easy way. And you don't feel restricted. So I am asking people to have dinner on the earlier side. I try to make the early bird cool yet again without living in a retirement home. Let's have an earlier dinner, right? Give yourself 2 hours between, at least 2 hours before you go to bed. This way digestion can happen in an appropriate way. But give yourself that 12 to 14 hours until your next breakfast, and then your body is going to benefit from quite a lot of the benefits of intermittent fasting without feeling deprived or like a crazy person or making poor choices.
Yeah. And what's great is a lot of times when people think of fasting, they're like, well, I have to do this while I'm awake as opposed to incorporating during sleeping times.
Well, that's the thing. If we can get, let's say at least 7 hours of sleep, I can say that's probably an average of most people. If 7 out of those 12 hours you're asleep, well, that's not so bad.
Yeah. Then you're able to kind of motor through all this. And so when you suggest people do the fasting, are they can have like water, throughout that time?
Yeah, absolutely. You can have water or even black coffee in the morning. So the thing about it, you finish dinner at 7 o'clock. You do what you need to do at home. You get ready. You go to sleep. You've brushed your teeth, and you've had water. But it's only a few hours until bed. And then you wake up. You have water. You can have some coffee. Ideally you're not loading it with milk or sugar. Hopefully it's black. And then you wait 12 to 14 hours, and then you have breakfast. It's not that tough at all. The thing that's hard is people get into the habit of eating an earlier dinner. The earlier dinner makes things a whole lot easier.
Yeah, because then you can just kind of jump start it from there and then start your system. And is that
exactly? Then you wake up and go.
And wake up and go. And is the fasting something that should be done like every week or every day? How should they do that?
Yes. So this isn't really even fasting. So this is early time restricted feeding. So I'm just asking, to most days, make your dinner earlier and breakfast 12 to 14 hours later. This should be your habit. This should be your schedule. And don't beat yourself up if it can't happen all the time, but this is the ideal schedule.
And then that way they can follow that. Okay, that's for a lot of people that can be pretty simple,
It is really simple, absolutely. But look, there's some nights that I have to work late, or I have an event, or I'm hosting something, and dinner is a little bit later just because that's what life is. And so those days, maybe it's only 10 hours between it. But the next day, then I work on having an earlier dinner, or you can even push your breakfast a little later. So you can make it work for you. Not everyone can go, have their dinner so early. Not everyone's able to do that. So then have breakfast a little later. Mm-hmm. It's very workable.
Yeah. And it really, the benefits are just immense.
Absolutely. If this can help us lose weight faster, control our blood sugar levels, metabolic responses are healthier, what more do we want?
Yeah. And it sounds like it will restart our metabolism in many ways when we're kind of, detoxing from that sugar and watching that.
Yeah, I don't think our metabolism can restart. I don't think it's really like a car, but I think that we can start leading it in the right direction for sure.
Oh, that sounds good to me. You got to love that. Well, and I know in your book you have this, one of the rules talks about supplements. And what are some of the ones that we're not paying attention to that we really need to be on top of?
Well, fiber, one of my number one rules, as we've talked about here, is protein and fiber at every single meal. And, I started doing some research on some of the older supplements that we used to take, and a lot of them, we used to always recommend fiber supplements, like a Metamucil or that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But nobody's going to be taking that anymore. It's hard to swallow. There's tons of pills, the yucky mixture. And so I went and, along with Twin Lab, through a company called Reservage, got to create the most amazing fiber supplements. And so there's something called Fiber Powder. It's by a company called Reservage. It's owned by the parent company, Twin Lab. But what I did with it was that in one scoop, in water, you get 8 grams of fiber, both prebiotic and probiotic fibers, and collagen protein powder. So you get 8 grams of fiber and 5 grams of protein, all in this one scoop of lemon water, it basically tastes like. And it is a really high-quality collagen protein. It has more fiber than your traditional serving of Metamucil. And it is so great to start your day off with blood sugar levels, helping to stabilize, helps with heart health, it helps with your bowel health and your stomach health. I could not ask for a better supplement. And so this is my number one suggested supplement that everyone takes.
I can understand completely. I did try one of those fiber, the other ones that you were talking about, like the Metamucil ones, and it was like, there was no way that stuff was going down. So it went in the trash instead.
Okay, it was an expensive test.
Yeah, and not a good thing. So it's nice to know that there are other things out there that we can use that are at least doable, because some of this other stuff, is like from the 40s. It might have been good then, but we've got better science now.
We have better science, and we have better mechanisms. And this powder, you put 1 scoop in a glass of water, and it's a delicious way to start the day. And though it's just fully dissolved, I have people that I know that just keep it in their water bottle all day long because it's delicious. This stuff should all be good. It should taste good. It should be easy to swallow, both literally and figuratively. It shouldn't be hard. This is food and health. We're not rocket science here.
Well, and you've made it so easy for people because a lot of people do get stuck in these old kind of ways. It's like, oh, I guess that's the only thing out there. And you're really bringing to light a lot of new ways that people can approach their health.
Exactly. And that's the goal. And the irony is I'm just bringing everyone back to basics, right? I mean, yes, I use the new science to support all my rules and it's all evidence-based. But at the end of the day, I'm teaching people what food should be on their plate. I'm asking them to cook with whole foods, using the whole egg, cooking with olive oil and coconut oil and healthy fats. I'm not asking people to do anything crazy or count tons of numbers or follow this 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 9, 10 diet. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it really, I think most people look for a way to eat, a diet, a healthy way of being that fits their lifestyle and that they can take with them regardless where they are. And your book really explains a lot of that and gives reasons why people would want to just make those switches in their life.
Exactly. And that's the goal. Let's get off this diet train. Jump off. Don't even get on it. And let's just do this the right way. It's fine if you need to lose weight. Just do it the right way so that you don't have to do it again.
Yeah. In your book, you talk a lot about vitamin D, and I did not know that it did a lot of the things that it does. I was pretty impressed.
Absolutely. We are a nation that is deficient in vitamin D, and it is so important for everything from our immune system to our bone health to our brain health. Vitamin D is really important. So any multivitamin that you're taking should have enough vitamin D to support what your needs are. And your doctor should be testing your vitamin D levels, especially during the winter. Because without healthy sun exposure, which is really hard to do because we need to be wearing sunscreen or it's too hot to be in the sun at the right hours, it's really hard to get enough vitamin D.
Yeah, I've had some friends that have had skin cancer because of being out in the sun. I grew up in the 70s, so you were out in the sun with baby oil and running around and what have you, and there was no, concern of sunscreen. So when you look for different ways to supplement that vitamin D, it's nice that you know that you can take the supplement and have the same benefits.
And absolutely. Look, I'm a skin cancer survivor as well. I had a huge skin cancer scare last year. So I literally am the one who's in the pool with my kids in the long-sleeve bathing suits. It's not the best look, but I'm protected. Yet I love when I can get 10 minutes in the morning in the early sun of really fresh, healthy air and sun exposure in a very controlled setting. That's just not always possible. I feel safe doing that for those 10 to 15 minutes in the morning. But other than that, you need to be fully protected to protect your skin. So vitamin D is really important for most of us to be taking.
So this leads me to my next question, too, is how much water should we be drinking every day?
That's a good one. So, people think I'm crazy when I try to promote how much water I want everyone to drink. The truth is everyone's body is different, but I'm normally asking most of my clients for a minimum of 1.5 liters to 2 liters a day. And the reason is, guess what? Drinking water also helps stabilize blood sugar levels. It helps your immune system because all of those healthy immune fighters to fight off colds and flu and stuff, they need to be well hydrated to get to where they're going. It keeps your bowels running and your stomach running regular. It also keeps your skin healthy, and it keeps us hydrated, which is often how we mistake extra hunger. So often someone's like, well, I'm so hungry. I'm like, when was the last time you had a glass of water? So we can easily mistake dehydration for hunger. And we tend to snack without realizing, let me just sit back and take a glass of calorie-free, water.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I have some friends of mine, in fact, one I'm thinking of in particular, and he says, you know what, I'm going to drink whatever he drinks. It's like teas and sodas and whatever, because he thinks that there's water in that, and that counts towards his water intake.
Nothing beats plain old water. If you're having decaffeinated, unsweetened tea, maybe I'll give that to you. And unsweetened, I'm not even talking any, artificial sweeteners or anything. Nothing in it besides the natural tea leaves, an herbal tea. That I can let pass, or seltzer I can let pass. But, most of those drinks and stuff, are either dehydrating because they have caffeine, they have sugar in them, so they don't really do benefit. So I'll give you 1 cup as a freebie, but the rest of it really should be water. I have a great app on my phone called Waterminder, and it sends the most annoying reminders to drink water. But because of these annoying reminders, I remember to take those extra sips. Since we've been on this call, my phone buzzed, and I had a reminder that I need to drink water, because I could have gone this whole hour without hydrating at all, which doesn't set me up for success later in the day.
Yeah, it's really managing, in a smart way, managing your health.
Exactly, and visual aids are really important, especially with water. So to have a big water bottle you keep on your desk, you keep in your car, you have an app like this to remind you, that yells at you to drink water. Whatever works for you, but just have that, those rules in your head so you know what you need to do.
That sounds like a fabulous app, and I'm going to be downloading that myself.
It's great. I make no money from the app. I wish I did, because I've recommended it to hundreds of people.
Well, and then so now we get to the last piece, that we're going to talk about today. I mean, you've got so much information in this book, and it's such a great resource, is exercise. So how much exercise do we need to be doing on a daily basis?
I want people moving. The number one rule about any sort of healthy life is that you're moving your body more than you're sitting. That would be the goal. Even while I've been on this call, I'm trying to pace around my office just so that I'm not constantly seated at my desk here. But when it comes to a true workout, my number one rule for a true workout is that no more than 2 days off without a proper exercise. So if you're able to work it on Sunday, but Monday and Tuesday you can't, you've got to do something on Wednesday. And it doesn't always mean hitting the gym or taking a boot camp class. It doesn't always have to be hardcore. It can be just making sure to walk around, the block a couple of times, parking further, just moving your body in a controlled way is the ultimate goal for any healthy lifestyle plan. If you can do real workouts and do a high-intensity interval training, which is the workout that I recommend, then you're only going to be doing, a better service to yourself and to your body. Now, it's called HIIT, high-intensity interval training, which sounds really scary, but it's just intervals where you push yourself. So for people who are walking, do a 30-minute walk a couple times a week. How about every 2 minutes, you try to do a 30-second, slow jog. Or if you're already slow jogging, every few minutes, do a 1-minute fast run. Do something to shake it up where all of a sudden you give your body a little bit hard work for a short period of time, and then you recover and do it again. And you'll see that you're going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. I love to do, interval training on the treadmill. So I'll walk at an incline for a while, and then I'll put the incline down, and I'll sprint for 30 seconds. And then every few minutes, I do the same thing over and over, which is great. In the book, I partnered up with one of my favorite gyms it's only in New York City, unfortunately, called the Fitting Room. Mm-hmm. And so they actually are the ones who contributed 10 amazing workouts that you can do anywhere, with equipment, without equipment, in a gym, at home. There's a 10-minute workout that I do on the road when I'm traveling for work. So really, there's no excuse not to do it, but also don't be fearful of how intense it sounds. Make it work for you.
Well, and if people are working at a desk all day, they can, like how you say, they can stand up, move around, and not really feel like they're being so confined. They can do this quick little workout. Exactly.
Just move your body. I mean, the 10,000 steps are great if you can do it every day. sometimes I'm able to do it, sometimes I'm not. I work full time. I have 2 young children. Sometimes life is more on the run than I'd like it to be. Yeah. But just have your goals and keep trying to get there.
And be able to move there. And also in your book, you've got these fabulous recipes. So it makes it really easy for people to look at different, I'm looking at the turmeric almond chicken fingers. And I mean, these things are so simple to make. They've got like 5 or 6 ingredients.
Yeah, so, I'm not a chef. I can cook and I can follow a recipe, but I'm not a chef. And I wanted to teach people that they don't need to cook these elaborate meals for things to be delicious and healthy. So I came up with 45 recipes that I'm able to do. So if I can make them, then anyone can make them, because I have started a few fires in my kitchen. But I can do these so other people can too. And it's 5 ingredients, not including like the salt and pepper and oils. But basically every recipe is only 5 ingredients. And we broke it down to the proteins, the fibers, and the starches. So it's a very easy way to make the meal. And I give a whole list of pairings of what food would go great with another, so that you know that you can do, the Asian chicken with the bok choy and then do the coconut black rice. And there you have a perfect dinner, which has the protein, fiber, and your starch.
Has everything together. I was looking at your Instagram, and my goodness, you have this matcha chai that's a pudding. It looks fabulous.
Yeah. Matcha chia pudding, chia seeds are these ultimate superfoods. They have protein, fiber, and fat. So there's going to be a lot of recipes with chia seeds if I'm around.
A lot of great stuff. Well, Brooke, gosh, we didn't even cover even a small portion of your book. I mean, it's got such amazing information, and I'm so glad we were able to spend this time here today. Where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community?
Oh, absolutely. I'm on all social media outlets, so whether it's on Facebook, on Instagram, Twitter, look for Be Nutritious. I go by the letter B, Nutritious. Go to my website, which is b-nutritious.com, for information about the book, for free downloadables, information on where I'll be and where I'm speaking next. You can find me. You can find me really quickly.
Well, you've got everything there, including some of the supplements that we've been talking about. That's available at the shop on your website. So it's nice to know that everything's there. And, of course, the book, The Diet Detox, and people can pick that up at all major retailers and, of course, on Amazon. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here today, Brooke.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This has been a really quick hour here. This has been great.
Yeah, it went by fast. My goodness. I mean, and I didn't cover all my questions, but that's okay because they're in the book.
They're in the book, and you know how to reach me. Shoot me a question on Facebook, and I'm happy to answer anything.
Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.